Hello, welcome to another episode, another edition. It is our recap episode of Season 4 of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. I am your host, Jon Santiago, and every other week I interview content creators about their stories, strategies, and experiences of building an online audience, oftentimes through video. As I mentioned, this is our recap episode for Season 4, so this is a time where myself and my producer, Nikki Vicente, go on and chat about what we learned in the past season of Videocraft Conversations. Nikki, where should we start?
Hey guys.
Where should we start? We're starting with Abbey Howe, correct? It was a long time ago that I recorded this interview, to be quite frank with all of you. But Abbey was a wonderful conversation that I remember having for this particular season. I'm wondering for you, what were some of the things that stood out about that particular conversation?
Yeah, Abbey Howe, our 34th episode. She's a certified Enneagram coach, and I personally don't know much about Enneagram, but I like reading up about. I like taking personality personality tests, like what are the other types of personality tests aside from Enneagram?
What is that? The INFJ, ENP. I don't
know
what those are.
I like taking those tests, the zodiac sign tests, those kind of things. So it's really interesting to see her content, how everything's focused on that, and I love how she incorporates her own type of humor into her videos, like her skits, her videos about Enneagram. And just during the interview, I think what struck me the most was how open she was about the struggles or the lows of being a content creator, and how it sometimes takes a toll on your mental health when you're always focusing on the numbers and stuff like that, because I guess that's a default thing to think about when you start getting into content creation. You start looking into your analytics and how many people are watching, how many people are liking your videos, how many people are disliking your videos. And she just talked to you about how she learned how to not base her self-worth on vanity metrics and on her work, because that doesn't say anything about who she is as a person, and that for her that's like an ongoing, never-ending struggle and journey as a content creator. So I love how she was honest about that, because I'm sure all content creators go through that at some point or another.
Oh yeah, I think even I was going through that at that particular time, which is why we were able to click in that conversation about what we were talking about. Just trying to, even for me, trying to build up this show, and for us together trying to build up this show and get it to a point to where it is right now. It has a lot of ups and downs. There are a lot of obstacles that stand in your way, and oftentimes the biggest obstacles are the ones that are in your own head. So that was a pretty enlightening conversation, I would say, for myself to have with Abbey. So let's go ahead and toss to a moment from that conversation that I had with her.
I put a lot of my worth into what I do, my job, my success, creating online content. It's so analytical. There's numbers that tell you, like, you did bad, you did good. This video sucks, this video is doing well, and it's getting pushed out. And I do brand management and content creation, social media stuff for a client. I put my worth in how their content is growing. And so if a certain platform isn't performing like I would like, I feel that mentally as like a reflection of my own self-worth, which clearly is not healthy and not good for me. How can I just be more present and be content with who I am as a person and not base my worth on what I am outputting? I think that will probably be a lifelong struggle for me.
Our next guest for this past season of the Videocraft Show was a inspiring couple, I would say. We actually did. It's interesting, Nikki. We had like this run of quite a few content creators based in the UK, and James and Kiimmy were the first of that lot. And they are a UK-based couple who, again, they create content on YouTube. It's just kind of like, vlogs and videos about their lives, but they also really take to YouTube in a way that is all about trying to inspire other people as well, inspire their viewers to be better than they currently are. I remember from that conversation, James talking about how, you know, I think he coached football when he was a little bit younger. So he's always kind of had this desire to want to help people and help better people's lives. And the same could be said about Kiimmy as well. So yeah, I just thought that was a very fun conversation to have. I'm wondering what stood out to you about that particular conversation.
Yeah, the thing with James and Kiimmy, they don't have like a specific niche of content. Like you can't really describe their content as just about one specific thing. They mostly do vlogs, Q&As, challenges, couple videos. But the thing about them is that the way they sort of carry themselves, I think you noticed that too. Like you were telling them about at the end of the interview how you liked how authentic they were and how just they present themselves and just how they talk. And I noticed that too, just watching the video, how just real they are. Like their most viewed video is just, I think it has like almost 2 million views now. It's just the two of them. It's like a 3-minute video. It's just the two of them in bed. They're just laughing because Kiimmy took off her wig for James for the first time. And I think that's their most viewed video. And I think that says a lot about how just casual and they just like making content. They just like documenting their lives. And I think that's what James said also, is that it's important to create content that you like. Because in the beginning, nobody's going to watch your videos. Maybe 1-2 people will watch your videos, or 5. Your mom, your dad. So it's important to like what you're creating. Because if you don't like what you're creating, nobody else will like what you're creating. So I like how they emphasize that. And I like how different they are too. How their backgrounds are so different. Like, Kiimmy came from, where was it again? She came from,
I believe it was Kenya. I have to double check on that.
Yeah, I think she mentioned Kenya. When she was younger, she moved to Kenya with her family to the UK. They just have different cultures, different backgrounds, but I love how they're able to work as a content creator team and how they talked about they're able to rely on each other for each other's strengths because they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. So in content, not just as a couple, but as a content creator team, they're able to use those differences to their advantage as well.
Yeah, and there was one other thing I remember bringing up in that conversation that I had with them, is that it's almost like their YouTube channel is like a reality show where they're just they are the stars of their own reality show, but they are, you know, also in addition to being the stars, they're the producers, they're the directors, and they're, you know, they have the final say of what goes out
they're in control,
to the public. And I think, you know, it's interesting, Nikki, that you mentioned that they don't have like a specific niche, but I would actually argue that they are in a niche. They're in the niche of relationship YouTubers, because it seems like there are a lot of these content a lot of these content creators out there today who are like #couple goals on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, and they're one of those people. And so I admire them for the fact that it seems like being on YouTube has made their relationship stronger, because, you know, I think that having the pressure of creating content around your relationship, you know, could have some definite downsides to it as well.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, continue. If you want to add something.
I was just going to add, when you mentioned that creating content about your relationship can take a toll on your relationship, that's happened for other creators as well. Like content creator couples who vlog on the daily about, like, together as a couple. And instead of strengthening their relationship, it sometimes, you know, it weakens it, takes a toll on their relationship. So I guess it can work differently on different couples. So it's nice to see that it has a positive effect on James and Kiimmy. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. We can roll the clip.
Do you ever feel like creating content is a way for you to better understand yourselves and your relationship with each other?
Yeah, I think so, especially when we do like little things like Q&As. And sometimes in those videos there's so many outtakes of us saying, what? Like, you really think think that I feel like we learn so much about each other in those videos because we don't even rehearse the questions. We kind of open our phones and you read a question, I read a question, and we just answer it as we go. And
I think it's having those old videos and looking of how we were then as well. It's like, can you believe that that's what we were like then? Now look how grown up and sensible we are together, and that's quite nice as well. And it's there forever, it's there for our kids to see, and they can see what we were like back then and how we were together and how our relationship has grown. And so I think that's a good thing.
So Lolli Wren was our next guest on the Videocraft Show, and she was fascinating to talk to just because she's really at the beginning of this journey as a content creator. And I've gotten to talk to her, and we have another guest coming up on this particular season who they're new to this whole content creation game, and it's very fascinating to hear the perspective of people just kind of going through this massive success snowball, I guess. I don't know how to say this perfectly, of just having so many people, having so many eyeballs on their content from almost out of nowhere. And she's been able to amass, I think at this point, she's probably close to around like 60,000 subscribers on YouTube. But she's been able to do it primarily through reacting to music videos, to singers and artists and what they're doing as musicians, because she herself is a singing coach. Yeah,
like I also like when you guys were talking about how she started doing vocal coach reacts videos. At first she was like confused, like, so people just watch you react to music or to people singing. But she's actually really good at it. Like the way she reacts and the way her face scrunches up when she listens to the singing videos. I like how she does her vocal coach reacts videos because I watched a bunch of those before, like from other creators, because we're Filipino, so Filipinos are super good at singing. So I like watching people react to Filipino singing. So that's entertaining. And I think Lolli's also reacted to Filipino singers as well. But anyways, I like how she was talking about how doing these vocal coach reacts videos, she's able to use that to her advantage when it comes to her vocal coaching business. So through her YouTube videos, people are now approaching her asking for vocal coaching. So she's a great example of how creating content related to your business can be super good for business. Like she said, she had like a long wait list at this point for her vocal coaching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that shows the power of video to really, if you are trying to build a business to generate sales for yourself or generate leads for yourself just by being yourself. So she's been able to do that really well, very early on. As a YouTuber. So let's go ahead and toss to a portion of my conversation with Lolli.
I come up with things from my own original ideas that I'd worked with my students, things I'd not heard before. So I was like, I really want to convey this information and see if it helps other people. One of my students, Bradley, said, I've been watching these vocal coach react videos and you'd be really good at them. And I thought, I'd never even heard of a vocal coach react video. So this whole vocal coach thing on YouTube, I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't know anyone else that did it. I didn't watch them, nothing. But then I watched a couple of these videos and I was like, wait, so you watch someone watch a video, right? Like, and I thought, well, I'm not doing that. So I thought maybe I could put my own spin on it and watch a video and then dissect the performance of every inch of its life. And that's why I eventually decided to do it.
Well, Nikki, the next conversation we are going to talk about that I had on this podcast is a conversation that really, it really shook up this entire podcast, to be honest. We were talking about just a moment ago in regards to Lolli having, experienced these massive flow of people to her videos. And we actually experienced it ourselves by interviewing this lovely woman, Bernadette Banner, who is in case you're not familiar with her, she is a dress historian who focuses primarily on the Victorian era of fashion. So a lot of fashion trends from the 1800s. This was our first big hit of a podcast as far as... Yes. Well, I would say, look, we had other hits too. I mean, our conversation with Andrew Hales went pretty well with his audience, but this showed me a couple things. It showed me how engaged her fan base is, because there are so many people who know who Bernadette is and decided to watch this conversation. And then there were a couple thousand of them who decided, for whatever reason, that they enjoyed the way that I conversated with Bernadette and wanted to hear me talk to more people going forward. So that was, again, very humbling for me. I'm going to bow to all of you new listeners and new watchers who've joined us here over the last few months, thanks to Bernadette. But beyond that, I mean, this was a very raw conversation where, you know, I think at the end it got very, very real in terms of how Bernadette has to deal with the duality of being this Bernadette Banner on screen versus Bernadette Banner, the regular woman, just living her life.
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite episodes because you guys do get into some good topics of when it comes to just being a creator and how she deals with, like, she has her own methods of, like, her own rules. Like, for example, she said she only reads comments within the first 24 hours because after 24 hours, like, there are trolls that pop up and, you know, comment weird things. So I like how grounded she is too. Like, she kind of knows where she's at and she knows her goals. I love how she said that her main goal, like, when you ask a creator, what's your goal as a content creator? Like, people might say, oh, I want a certain number of subscribers or I want to reach this certain milestone. But with Bernadette, and also with Abby too, she mentioned this, Abbey Howe, that their main goal was just to be happy and just love what they're doing. And I think that's a good goal to have, not just as content creators, but just as people in general. Because when you reach that point, like Bernadette Banner too, like, she's able to do what she loves. It's such a specific niche too. It's like under the fashion, it's like a sub niche. Wouldn't you say, like, under fashion, it's like specific fashion era, like the Victorian era. And I think that's why people are so in love with her, because she's so passionate about such a specific thing and how committed she is to creating content and researching about dress history. So I think people see that and recognize that and respect how well she does her research. Like, she talked about how each YouTube video is like a research paper because she really does look into the sources and she double checks who said what or what are the facts, what aren't the facts. So I think people recognize that and respect that and see that as good content. And that's why people love her, I think. And also just the way she talks. I love the way she talks. Like, she's so eloquent and the words she chooses, and just, I love her. I love her, just her aura. I think you can see it through the screen even, like how she is, like her vibe.
Yeah, she has this way about, I find it interesting now, you know, following her on Instagram and even following her on YouTube now, that she has this, she's able to kind of meld both the, like, modern vernacular with, like, Victorian vernacular.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
She'll say things that are just like, that is something that somebody in the 2020s would say, but then but it'll be in reference to something that she saw on her.
Yeah, that's why.
Go ahead.
I think that's why people are like, did Bernadette just, like, time travel from the past and just sort of started hanging out in the 21st century? Because, like you said, she has, like, the way she is, it's like she is actually from that time period. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, she's a very bright woman. She knows her stuff.
Yes.
She's incredible. And again, she has an incredibly engaged fan base, kind people who have said the nicest things about her. They said very nice things about me as well. And that's that really opened my eyes to the power of what this platform is capable of.
Yes.
Just the amount of influence that one person can have is insane. And I think sometimes we don't really think about that much, especially as the numbers get larger and larger and larger. You know, like, some people, they kind of it just becomes almost second nature to them once they've gotten, like, a couple million subscribers on their YouTube channel or following them on TikTok, that this is just the way things are. But seriously, just the amount of power that a single person can have by just creating a YouTube channel
Yes.
is insane. Again, it's insane. And we've gotten a chance to see what that looks like firsthand just by the amount of people who've come to this podcast via our conversation with her. So let's go ahead and toss it to a moment from that particular discussion that I had with Bernadette.
It was really just a matter of 17-year-old me saying, if I could do anything in the world this summer, what would I want to do? Well, work on Broadway for this costume designer who I really admire. So I found her email address and I sent her an email saying, do you need an assistant? She said yes. And then one thing led to another thing led to another thing. I ended up working for a couple of different designers. And the thing about most jobs, it's less about what you know and more about who you know. Skills can be taught, but you cannot teach working well with a person. I got on very well with everyone there. And then, those people were able to recommend me to other people. I would just keep working for the same designer who said, I have another show going on, come do this with me. And it was sort of a whirlwind roller coaster. I had no idea what I was getting into. It was thrilling. It was exciting. But it was all of a sudden 4 years had gone by. And I'm like, I need to go to school.
Our next guest was Melissa Bartow, and she was a pleasant conversation for me. I had a great time chatting with her because she's had some amazing experiences. She's an entrepreneur who runs her own business. Go check it out, wannadate.com. She's not endorsing this, by the way. I'm endorsing it just because I've bought her date spread, and I've also bought her new product. She's making date dough, which is incredible.
Yeah,
it's
I saw.
super tasty, but she's utilizing video to, showcase her personality, to showcase herself as a CEO, a young CEO of her own, food company. And I learned a lot about the process of creating, manufacturing, and then selling and distributing a physical product. Particularly in the food space. I mean, there's a lot of logistics that go into creating any kind of product. I mean, we know about that firsthand here at Video Husky as a service-based business. There's many logistics that are involved in terms of hiring editors, hiring hiring a team, scaling a team. But there is something about what I talked about with Melissa that was really interesting to me. Is just, again, her ability to create this product and go out and source the proper manufacturers, source the right companies to work with and partner with to actually create her date spread, which is, I think it's doing pretty well. Yeah. But on top of that, she was on a TV show here in the States called Shark Tank. I'm sure many of you might be familiar with that as well. And she was lucky enough, I would say lucky / she also created an opportunity by working very hard and cultivating her pitch to land investment from one of the biggest sharks on the show, Mark Cuban, who is an entrepreneur, owner of the NBA's Dallas Mavericks. But there was a lot that we talked about, particularly from an entrepreneurship standpoint here.
Yeah, and just beyond the manufacturing and distribution of her product, like when it comes to marketing her product, I see her strategy as like she's dedicated to being the face of her company. And she also talked about how important it was for her to come face to face with her customers. Like, she is the one who replies to messages and stuff like that. And she wants to be sort of she wants it to be like a personal experience when people buy her date spread, I guess. And I think that's super important because, I mean, I haven't built a business myself, but as a customer, it's nice to be able to talk to someone from a company and know that that person is the owner of the company, or that person is the face and CEO of the company, and they care enough to actually talk to their customers. And I think that's a nice strategy that Melissa is doing for her company, and how she does that through her YouTube channel. Like you said, she's making content around her product and her lifestyle of, healthy living, healthy eating, and stuff like that. And with Shark Tank, like, I watch Shark Tank, and I personally, like, I get scared for the people who are pitching. So I think she was super brave. Like she's like my age or even younger. She's 24 or 25.
Yeah, I think you two are like around the same age.
So I love how brave she was to actually go on Shark Tank. And yeah, we are around the same age. I love how she was so brave to go there and just pitch her idea. Because like I said, the sharks can get super intimidating, and I'm just watching from home, from a screen. So yeah, I really appreciate that about her. And she also talked about the importance of outsourcing tasks. And I think she's a client of Video Husky, so she talked about how having a video editor edit your videos is important if you want to grow as a content creator. And another guest talked about this too, Heather Torres from Think Media, who we'll get into later. Like she also talked about how outsourcing tasks, not just video editing, is super important to your growth as a content creator. So yeah, I love how she recognized that, talked about that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and toss to this particular moment from my conversation with Melissa.
It all starts really with turning off all the noise of the outside world, your competitors, what other people are doing, and like coming back to me, like, why did I start this business? Who am I? What are my goals? Where do I want it to go? I am an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. I like that. I started this for the freedom of not having to answer anyone, not having to like be at a desk. I get to decide the responsibilities I want to take on, whether that's going to be hiring 20 people and being responsible for budgets that are huge or small. It's all up to me. So that's a blessing if I do it the right way, because then I'm literally creating the life I want with the business I want. I get to decide where I do business, who I do business with, what headaches are worth my time and what headaches aren't worth my time.
So I had the pleasure of talking to two members of the infamous, I don't know if infamous is the right word, but the very popular over the last year and a half or so, Klem Family, Brian and Ethan Klem. Now, the Klem Family blew up pretty much on TikTok initially, but then went a whole nother level on YouTube, utilizing YouTube Shorts through all of these family game challenges that they would film and record themselves doing. It was really just like a little project for themselves, a quarantine project at the beginning of the pandemic for Brian and his family, along with his son Ethan, who is pretty much like, I guess, like the mastermind behind everything going on the YouTube side of things. But I alluded to this earlier, Nikki, about just people who are dealing with like this sudden rush of fame or sudden rush of internet stardom. These are definitely like Brian and Ethan definitely are in that vein. And I could sense that too when I talked to them, is that they're still really just figuring all of this out. And that's what is so wild to me about this whole content creation universe that we are a part of, is you didn't have this before, right? I think in the past, let's say, I don't know, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Hollywood celebrities who blew up, to superstardom. It seemed like relatively quickly, but in reality, they were putting in years of work ahead of time. I think of like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck when they came out with Good Will Hunting, like 25 years ago, whenever that movie came out. It seemed like at the time, it's like, oh, look, these young guys in Hollywood who are just, they came from nowhere. But in reality, I think Ben Affleck had already done a couple movies at that point. Same thing with Matt Damon. Like, they were already working actors, and they had put in the time and the effort. They had put in years into getting to that point where they reached, recognition of the masses and had this critically acclaimed film, ultimately win, I think, a couple Oscars. But you've never had this before, where people like the Klem family, they just decide to do something in the middle of a pandemic of this, it seems like once in a lifetime type of ordeal that we all have gone through in the last year. And here they are almost a year and a half later, and this is something that they can rely on almost as a major income stream from themselves. And so I just find that part of the whole process really fascinating.
Yeah, you're talking about how all of this is new, and it is really still new. Like this thing, this content creation thing, this universe that you were talking about. It's a relatively new thing. So I guess this is like the Klem family is an example of how video can be super powerful. And I don't think they expected this amount of people watching them play games, like, or do challenges as a family. They have over 4 million followers and subscribers now across YouTube and TikTok. And Brian's the name of the dad,
yes.
right? And Ethan is the son. So I got them confused. Brian was talking about how they only just started this as like a fun thing to do during the pandemic, and they wanted to get more TikTok followers than his daughter's friends. And now I'm sure he has a lot more followers than his daughter's friends. But like, I love how it just started off as a joke, and now it's like you were saying, it's a major income stream for them as a family. I wanted to share something. Like, my best friend was asking me recently for suggestions, because she was like, do you have any suggestions for family games? Because my family and I are going on a trip in December, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just sent her the Klem family social media links. I was like, just check out this family. They have so many games on there, so many challenges that you can easily replicate. And I think I'm going to do that too, because my family and I do like Christmas parties every December. So sometimes we have a hard time thinking about like challenges or like games to play. Like, we always play rock, paper, scissors and just play for money, like 1 against 1, and then it's like an elimination process. But anyways, it's a whole other thing. But my point is, like, they have such a selection and unlimited number of challenges and games on there. And I think people love that, because it's just, they get so creative about their ideas. And I think Brian and Ethan talked about this with you too during the interview. Like, sometimes they just go to like the department store or Target or whatever, and they just buy a bunch of things that they can use for games. So that's super resourceful of them, and they're just super dedicated, I think, to just having fun. And I think that shows in their content. It's just they just like what they're doing, so they just happen to film it and people like watching it too.
I feel like we need to focus also more on like showing our personality. So any type of video that would be more talking to people or interactions between the family instead of playing the games, because a lot of these games will just have, you know, the game happening, but you don't really get to know us that much. It's more or less just like, you know, who's gonna win.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the short form videos, especially the TikToks, switching to the long form where we have to talk, and like, we're not actors or anything, so
most of us are super shy. Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't even have done this podcast a year ago probably.
So these are all things that I think that we're working on, and hopefully will come with time, and we'll just keep making videos. And another thing I think is we've got such a wide range. Like, we've still got an 8-year-old, so we've got unlimited things that we can continue to do in terms of challenges and stuff like that.
I think, Nikki, you know how much I enjoy talking to people who like traveling or have spent any time abroad. And so it was a pleasure for me to talk to Amelia and JP, who have their own YouTube channel. Of course, why else would we be talking about them if they didn't have their own YouTube channel? But they are an American expat couple who relocated from the States and now live pretty much permanently in Ecuador, and have created an entire YouTube channel around their lives in Ecuador, which has then stemmed into them building a community of other American expats who are either interested in moving to Ecuador or live in Ecuador. And it's also spawned, you know, I think a business for themselves too, for them to advise other expats on how to move to Ecuador, being able to connect them to services that, you know, they've vetted themselves by living in Ecuador. And so I had a lot of fun talking to them just because I could hear the ocean in the background where they were living at the time. They were based somewhere super close to the Pacific Ocean, it sounded like. But it was very fun to chat with them about how they've been able to build community, foster that. But then also too, I mean, I always find it inspirational to see unconventional people like themselves who don't necessarily fit the archetype of, oh, hey, what is a YouTuber or what is a content creator? I mean, I think there's a tendency to assume that anybody who is creating content for YouTube or TikTok or Instagram these days, they've got to be like 18 years old or something, because that's what you see. You see the biggest influencers out there are like in their 20s, but they're showing that, hey, you can be a little bit older couple and find a way to build community for yourself and be creative on this platform. It's for everybody. It's not just for young people.
Yeah, and with that, I think what inspired me the most about your conversation with them is just their origins, like why they started this in the first place, why they moved to Ecuador in the first place. And it was because of JP's health issues. Like they weren't able to afford healthcare in the US anymore, and they just got to the point where they said, hey, you know what, let's rethink our lives and our priorities. And I love how they just really took action. They got up and moved to Ecuador. You know how when you're young, like you think of, oh, you know what? One day I'm gonna live in blah 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 in Paris or in Spain or whatever, and I'm just gonna live there someday. I will. And Amelia and JP are an example of people who actually took action and moved where they wanted to move, or traveled where they wanted to travel. And yeah, I think they're inspiring a lot of people. Like we said, they're not like the typical or stereotypical idea of what a YouTuber is. And I love that they're changing that stereotype or that sort of mold that we think when we think of, YouTubers. And yeah, and it's just, it's inspiring how JP also talked about his journey when they were going through his healthcare issues, how positive he was in dealing with that, and Amelia too as his partner, and how they were just able to document that. Kind of like James and Kiimmy, how they just started documenting their relationship. But Amelia and JP's are, in this case, they documented their journey to move and, JP's healthcare issues and all that. And I think it's just a much more complex sort of journey. And their channel is now like helpful and informative for people who want to go to Ecuador. Right? They're able to build resources and sort of help other people with the information that they got just by staying there. So
yeah, exactly. I think that is one of the best ways to approach creating content, at least from what I'm learning from all these people that we've had on this show. Amelia and JP are, perfect example of basically using YouTube, creating a platform for themselves to educate and be a resource to other people. They're solving problems for other people who want to do what they did themselves. And so that is one of the better ways, I think, to build an audience, is if you are actually solving problems, answering questions that other people like you have.
Once you get out of your comfort zone and you realize you experience more of what life has to offer, you realize that can be your new normal, that you don't have to return to the old status quo if you don't want to. People ask us every once in a while if we would move back to the United States. I always say we don't know where we'll end up, but we know that there's a whole world out there. So will we move back to the United States? Probably not, because we want to experience other countries.
Yeah, it kind of gets addictive when you go, because I remember when we first moved to Cuenca, it was just so new and exciting, and everything was a new experience. And after living there 2.5 years, it just felt like home. Then we moved to the coast, but then after a year of living there, I was ready to move again. You get addicted to that whole newness aspect, the new exciting adventures and the creating new routines and meeting new people.
Jessica Stansberry was the next guest I spoke to on this season of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. And Jessica found herself in a really precarious and awkward situation or moment in her YouTube career, so to speak. She's been facing a bit of a plateau in terms of viewership and engagement on her YouTube channel. She's done quite well for herself. She's already over 100,000 subscribers, but she's having trouble engaging people and having people come back for more to her YouTube channel. And I really found it very inspiring to hear her be open about that and chat about that, rather than, pretending that there wasn't things to be improved upon or changed with her YouTube content. I think a lot of people many times will hide behind a false guise of security, when in reality they know that there are things that they need to improve upon. So I really admired her for being, vulnerable and honest about those things. And that's something that I think other YouTube creators, aspiring creators or current creators would need to hear at some point, is just being able to deal with these moments in which your YouTube channel is just kind of coming to a bit of a plateau.
Yeah, and she was also open about how recently she's been experimenting with her strategy on YouTube. So she talked about how she learned how she shouldn't always plan content months in advance, because when she used to do that, like she said at one point she was like, did she say 2 months in advance? She was way ahead of her schedule. She had a lot of like scheduled content ahead. So yeah, I just like how she brought that up, because I think you guys also talked about how it's hard to like sort of adjust your workflow, or I mean it's necessary, but it's a challenge as a content creator. If you like, it's necessary to adjust what you do and sort of strategize what will work, and learn what didn't work before. And with her, she said she was experimenting with upload schedules, and like I said earlier, like she said that when she plans content in advance, like it doesn't help her feel connected to what she's creating because it's so advanced. Like the content she would do is like, she would film today would probably be published like from 2 months from now, for example. Yeah, just that kind of thing. Like she also talked about like the 80-20 rule when it comes to calls to action. Because I think when, you know, as content creators, like I think it's like it's almost a default na, you know, like, comment, subscribe, or check out this thing that I want you to buy or whatever. But she said that you should only do that like every 4 videos or so. Like 80% of your videos should be just you building your audience and engaging with your audience, and the other 20 you can ask for things from your audience, like check out this product or whatever. Yeah, I love her. I think I just learned so much from her when it comes to content creation. She also talked about trend hacking and how you can use that to sort of hack the YouTube algorithm, or just get ideas on what content you can create that people might want to watch as well. So yeah, I just learned a lot of things from Jessica.
Then going from like working for a company in which you're guaranteed a paycheck to then like having to hustle and like find clients for yourself. How was that transition for you? Like, were there resources that you turned to?
It was not that well researched at all. I mean, I didn't have any guidance. There weren't really a lot of online courses or things like that back then. This was 2010. It was a lot of Google and a lot of figuring it out on my own. But I went to a conference and had a conversation with one of the peers there. And she was like, Jessica, you can do this. You're a hustler, so you're going to make it work. And I'm afraid if you sit here and ride the fence, you'll constantly feel safe and you'll never make that transition. I was like, all right, the web design clients I have now are it. I'm done after this. But I had enough confidence in myself and my skills that I could do it, and that I knew if I felt the pressure that I would do it.
Most of the time here on the Videocraft Show, we have talked to YouTubers, particularly, again, primarily people who are building their audiences on YouTube. We've talked to a couple, I think we've talked to one person, Rob Lawless. You can check out his episode. He has primarily built his audience through Instagram. But I had the pleasure of talking to Laleh Jennings, who is a woman who has built her following through TikTok. And just like the Klem family, she started creating content basically during the pandemic. It was just kind of like this hobby for herself. Mm-hmm. And here we are more than a year and a half later, and she's, you know, now endorsing I don't know how many different brands. She seems like she's getting a ton of different brand deals for herself through TikTok, but she's really obviously been able to build up a pretty big following for herself in that motherhood niche. I don't know if they call it mom talk or something on TikTok, but I enjoyed my conversation with her, just like with everybody else, getting to talk to her about how she comes up with ideas. You know, she does a lot of skits on her TikTok account, and just even, you know, how she's navigating this world as someone who has, you know, amass such a large following in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think it's a super creative way to go about motherhood. I think this is the type of thing I want to do when I become a mother in the future. Like, just create content about being a mother or about conversations I have with my kids. And I watched a couple of her skits, and I love how she acts with her eyes. I think you mentioned this to her about her eyes got like big.
She sells everything. She sells her mood, her attitude, her entire like vibe through how big her eyes get. You know, she's really her facial expressions. as good of a script as she's written for like each of her videos, because she scripts her videos out. Because again, some of them are again, these are like skits, but her acting is really good, and she's not,
it is.
She's not like a trained actor or anything like that. She has a day job, but she is very good at being very expressive, utilizing her face, so to speak.
Yes. And she also said that she never really tried to... Well, she does a bunch of skits now and content on TikTok, but she said that she never, like in the beginning, she never really tried to attain a certain amount of followers. Like she was just doing it for fun in the beginning, to just document conversations she had with her kids or things that her kids do. And she has a characters loosely based on her kids. And that's another example what I was talking about earlier, about how it's important to like what you're creating. And because if you like what you're creating and you're enjoying what you're creating, it will show and people will enjoy that you're enjoying your content. So I love how just confident she is in the way she creates content, and how you can really see that she's enjoying acting or playing out her skits. And I think she reenacts conversations, right? Like if she had like funny conversation with her kids, like sometimes she would reenact that conversation to film it. That's her strategy, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, it's interesting.
She's really, I mean, that is just a great example of how you can come up with ideas for content. A lot of people have struggles in figuring, okay, what do I make my next video about? You know, what do I do? And for her, she's just looking directly at her life and just taking notes, mental notes of conversations she's having with her family, with her kids, and turning up the volume, so to speak, on those moments, you know, to make them funny. Because I'm sure like in the moment, you know, it is funny, you know, some of the things that her kids have said to her. But I imagine that there are just times where, just to add a little bit more dramatic effect, you just turn up the volume a bit. So anyways, what I'm trying to say here is just, if you're looking for ideas for content, I mean, just look right in front of you. There could be ideas just, you know, hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, exactly.
If you really do truly support a creator and you want them to see them be successful and continue creating that content for you, and you really love them and don't want to see them go away, they're not going to be able to sustain it doing this forever for free. So they're going to need to be able to make money to be able to support this, right? I just think of it like if I'm watching a TV show and there's commercials in between, right? It all comes with the understanding that this is supporting what you're watching. Some people are never going to understand that. And I often see these rants where people are like, I'm unfollowing you, you know, because you're doing sponsored posts. Well, if you were in my shoes and somebody came knocking on your door and said, hey, I can help pay for this effort that you're putting into this great work that you're doing, I think you would say yes to. So it's easy to say it when it's happening to you, or like you're not in that person's shoes.
Well, this last guest that I spoke to for season 4 of the Videocraft Show was it was a treat to chat with her, Heather Torres of Think Media. They are I would call them an institution as far as YouTube educators, content creation educators on YouTube. Think Media was founded by Sean Cannell. A lot of our creators here at Video Husky, businesses and creators of the like, look to Think Media for tips and advice on how to build their YouTube channels. And we would highly recommend them as well. And getting to chat with Heather was really fun for me, just from the perspective of someone who is working in the inner workings of a company involved in the content creation space. I really took away a lot from my conversation with her about how she stays organized, how they've been able to develop their own systems to manage a remote team. I mean, these are things that even we here at Video Husky, we are constantly facing and dealing with them on a daily basis, trying to improve our company and how we work on top of creating content. I mean, they're creating content at a much more rapid pace than we are here at Video Husky, but they have other kinds of business offerings too that that are like the major revenue generators for themselves beyond the advertising and brand sponsorships that they get from YouTube. So definitely a fun conversation. Great to connect with her. Yeah, I mean, I hope that won't be the last time I talk to her, and I hope it's not the last time I get to chat with somebody from Think Media. At some point, it would be great to probably have Sean on the show in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I think my favorite part of your conversation with Heather was how she was talking about the systems that they put in place in Think Media. That's interesting to me because, well, one, I'm a Virgo, so like I like learning about organizational stuff and systems, processes, and stuff like that, workflows. So she was talking about how their workflow started in a Facebook Messenger chat, and everything was just on there. And if you think about that and compare and look at where they are right now, when you look at their channel, their YouTube channel and their podcast YouTube channel, they're just so efficient when it comes to creating content and also strategic. So I love how they were able to get from there to here. And I was actually watching Think Media's first ever video yesterday. It was Sean Cannell
from like 2010, wasn't it? I remember watching that video myself.
Yeah. And the camera quality was a bit bad. Well, it wasn't bad. You can still see him, but compared to our cameras today, like it's a big difference. And it was just like the editing was just super simple and just straight to the point. And it's just interesting to see, not just with Think Media, but when you look at other creators as well who have gotten successful over the years. It's interesting to compare their latest video and their earliest video. And it was fun to do that with Think Media's channel because like you said, it was from 2010, super long ago. And now, like you said, they're an institution. They're a great resource for people who want to be YouTubers. And I like how Heather talked about how you should know the language of your audience because for them, what they do is like they actually talk to people who follow them as in face to face, like they talk to them, ask them what their problems are when it comes to content creation. And it's important to know the language of your viewers because she said that some of their viewers just want to learn how they can have a blurry background, quote unquote blurry background. And I think when you're a beginner, you don't really know how to do that, or you don't know the terms like depth of field or aperture when it comes to cameras or shutter speed or frame rate or stuff like that. You just want a blurry background. So she said it's important to learn the words that your audience is using when it comes to like, what does my audience want to learn from them in this case? So I think that's a good strategy that they're applying to their content creation processes. They're actually talking to their audience, learning their problems, learning their struggles. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're super successful now, is they're such a great resource for content creators everywhere.
Yeah, and there's probably been so many YouTube creators who, started out by watching their YouTube channel and look at where they are today. I think recently I saw one of our old guests on the show, Rob Abasolo. Rob Built was a guest on their podcast. So I imagine that Rob at one point was probably watching Think Media videos. I know Monty Weaver, who was a guest on this show, looked to Think Media as well. So again, they are pretty much, one of the top go-tos when it comes to figuring out how to build an audience through video. So this was a great conversation to have. So let's just go ahead and toss to a moment from this conversation that I had with Heather.
The song "All I Do Is Win, Win, Win" is a lie. It's a lie. There's going to be seasons in YouTube, in life, where there are plateaus. That's where you get to go deeper into your personal growth, the reflection of what do I need to change? Because what got me here will not get me there. And so where do you need to personally grow? Maybe it's in your leadership. Maybe it's you need to partner with someone, or you need to redefine what your mission is on your channel. Don't believe the hype of "all I do is win, win, win," because in life, there will be seasons of darkness. And you got to do the hard work, and you got to get up, you got to make the content, you got to produce the thing, and you don't want to. But as you push through those things, you'll start to see the fruits of your labor happen, and the plateau will end, and you'll move on to the next season. And the new levels, new devils. It'll always happen every time.
Okay, Nikki, what would you say are your big takeaways from this past season Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think this was a great season. I think we had such a variety of guests. Like, we have a vocal coach, we have a dress historian, we have a COO, we have different kinds of people in this season. So it was really fun to hear their personal journeys when it comes to content creation. I think I learned a lot from this season. Also, specific strategies when it comes to content creation and just marketing your content in general. I learned a lot from our guests this season. And I think my biggest takeaway, not just when it comes to strategies, but I guess the mental health side of being a content creator. I think one common thing that some of our guests this season talked about when you ask them what their goal is as content creators, because you asked that question to some of our guests, the common thing they said is that they just want to be happy and enjoy what they're doing. And I think that's beautiful, because I think it's easy to be sort of fixated or obsessed with numbers or analytics, and at the end of the day, it's just really the most important thing is just to like what you're doing and like who you're becoming as a content creator and the type of person you're presenting to your audience. And like we were talking about earlier, like video is just such a new thing. If you think about it, it's such a new tool, and sometimes we forget how powerful it can be. Like, we have a number of guests in this season where they didn't expect their channels or their social media platforms to blow up that much. And like I said earlier, like it's such a testament on how video can be super powerful. And you and I, Jon, are part of the content creation world, so it's such a nice thing to learn that, you know, who we're presenting, the type of people we are being and showing to our audience is important, and not just when it comes to facts or strategies and content creation stuff, but just how you are on video. It's such a great tool to connect with other people around the world. So yeah, I think that's what I learned, the favorite tidbit I learned this season. How about you? What's your biggest takeaway?
I would just say, to add on to that is, you know, the idea of just enjoying what you're doing, and, you know, the cliche of following your passion. I think that's a good way to start for the most part. Of course, long term, like if you want it to be, if your aspirations are for your content to become a business for yourself, then of course, then you have to figure out a way to monetize, and we've had guests, who were able to do that. But yes, I do believe, like, in the beginning, you do have to start by just enjoying the process of creation and going from there. Because if you're so caught up on the idea of getting to your end goal, whether it's like 1 million subscribers or making, I don't know, like $1 million a year as a YouTuber, you know, I don't think you're gonna get there if you're too fixated on those material outcomes, you know, at the very beginning of your journey. Because again, looking at some of the creators, for example, that I spoke to, such as Bernadette Banner and the Klem family, I mean, Bernadette, for example, everything is kind of taken care of itself because she focused on the one thing that has allowed her to, you know, build this platform for herself, and that's just her enjoyment of sharing what she knows on YouTube.
Yeah, and I remember, like, what Heather Torres said. I think this was the last thing she said at the end of your episode. She said, "New levels, new devils."
Yeah.
She said that. And you mentioned how tweetable it is. And I think it's relevant to what we're talking about, because like you were saying, it's important to enjoy what you're doing in the first place, but then later on you have to think strategically and think about what you can do to scale your channel and use that as a tool for your business, for example. And I think you just have to enjoy that process of growing and evolving as a content creator, because there will always be new challenges. Every step there will be new challenges. The more you grow, there will be new challenges. So yeah, I think just enjoy the journey as a content creator, and I think success will follow after that. So yeah, great season we had. So
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode and this recap of Season 4 of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. I want to remind all of you, again, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, feel free to do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And subscribe to us here on YouTube if you haven't already as well. So for Nikki Vicente, as well as our editor, Ingrid Saraiba, and our graphics guy, Paulo Lopez, I'm Jonathan Santiago, and you have been listening to and watching, for those of you who have been watching on YouTube, another episode, another edition of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. We will see you soon.
Bye, guys.